Newsroom, I'm Don Ma. President Trump expressing fresh optimism about a potential deal with Iran. What caveats he's noting, though, and what are some conditions the U.S. is pressing for? The Trump administration expanding sanctions on Cuba, targeting a military-controlled business conglomerate and a mining venture tied to the communist regime. The Trump administration sanctioning Iraq's deputy oil minister and Iran-linked militias as the Treasury Department intensifies its maximum pressure campaign against Tehran. A federal judge allowing the government to keep thousands of 2020 election ballots seized from Georgia's Fulton County as investigators probe alleged irregularities tied to the presidential election. Officials from across the globe are tracking the deadly Hanta virus outbreak, what the CDC says about American passengers on the ship where the virus is spreading. A Chinese-born U.S. citizen goes on trial in New York accused of helping Beijing operate a secret Chinese police station in Manhattan. A rare blue diamond expected to steal the spotlight at Sotheby's spring auction next week, with experts saying the flawless gemstone could sell up to $12 million.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. President Trump sounding optimistic about a deal with Iran, but also notes Iran's track record of breaking agreements. It comes as the president is meeting with the Brazilian president today at the White House. Joining us now live is NTD's White House correspondent, Iris Tao. Iris, good afternoon. So tell us first, what about this meeting that we're hearing and a potential deal with Iran?
Sure, good afternoon to you as well, Don. Oil prices are already falling for a second day in a row amid refreshed new prospects about a potential deal between the U.S. and Iran. So reportedly, the two countries are now negotiating over a memorandum of understanding that's aimed at breaking through the standoff that's right now in the Strait of Hormuz, as well as to set a timeline for starting to talk about and plan a more comprehensive deal surrounding Iran's nuclear ambitions. According to reports, the U.S. is pressing for several conditions, including a 20-year ban on uranium enrichment from Iran and a ban on underground nuclear activity and dismantling key nuclear facilities. Iran is now reviewing this proposal from the U.S. and could respond in the coming hours or days. Meanwhile, President Trump on Wednesday expressing cautious optimism about this new potential deal, but also is again warning that if there's no deal with Iran, he could resume bombing. Watch.
Now we're doing well. Now we have to get what we have to get. If we don't do that, we'll have to go a big step further. But with that being said, they want to make a deal. We've had very good talks over the last 24 hours, and it's very possible that we'll make a deal. Yeah.
And maritime authorities say that for the past 24 hours, there's no new incident reported in the Strait of Hormuz. Of course, that's after President Trump paused Project Freedom, meant to guide ships through that key waterway in order to give some breathing room for diplomacy. The Pentagon, meanwhile, says that U.S. forces remain locked and loaded in the region and give the president his military options still on the table. The Central Command also announcing on Wednesday that it has struck an Iranian oil tanker that attempted to break the U.S. blockade in that key waterway, saying that that ship repeatedly ignored U.S. warnings. Meanwhile, while there's new prospect about a potential deal, we know that history tells us that these talks can shift rather quickly. And President Trump also noting in a new interview that Iran does have a track record of breaking agreements. Watch.
It's very interesting because, you know, they make a deal and then they break it, then they make a deal, they break it. It's a difficult group. But from a military standpoint, I mean, if we left today, it would take them 20 years to rebuild.
And U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Mike Waltz, today when talking about a resolution for Iran to cease its attacks in the Strait of Hormuz, questioned if Iran doesn't agree to that resolution, does it really want peace? Watch.
So Look, this should be a simple demand: the removal of mines from an international waterway, that you cannot exact illegal tolls. We have to address these violations here in the Council, and we have to ask ourselves, if a country chooses to oppose such a simple proposition, do they really want peace?
Meantime, President Trump today is meeting with the president of Brazil, Lula, at the White House. It comes amid tensions, though, between the two countries, as last year President Trump imposed a 50% tariff on some Brazilian goods, and Lula has expressed some challenges and criticism towards President Trump's policies, including the war in Iran and the U.S. blockade on Cuba. It remains to be seen, though, if the two will take questions from the press, as Lula arrived about 3 hours ago and the press has yet to be let in to the Oval Office for their meeting or now during their lunch. So a lot to watch for in the coming hours to see if President Trump will again address the press. Back to you.
Okay, great. Iris, thank you. The U.S. issuing sanctions targeting an executive and two entities linked to Cuba. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says the action is aimed at protecting U.S. national security and denying Cuba's communist regime access to illicit assets. The State Department says the sanctions target a Cuban military-controlled conglomerate involved in all sectors of Cuba's economy, as well as its executive president. The department has also sanctioned a joint venture between a Toronto-based mining company and Cuba's state-owned nickel company. The sanctions are part of the Trump administration's economic pressure campaign against Cuba. Those efforts include a stop to Venezuelan oil shipments to the communist-controlled island. Now to the Middle East, where Israel has carried out an airstrike in Beirut, the first since agreeing to a ceasefire with the Iran-backed terror group Hezbollah last month. Israeli officials say the strike targeted a Hezbollah commander in the southern suburbs of the city. The Israeli military later released footage of the strike. The ceasefire in Lebanon has been a key part of a broader U.S.-Iran understanding, with Tehran pushing for a halt to Israeli strikes in Beirut. But tensions remain high. Israeli forces remain deployed south of the Litani River, while strikes have continued in southern Lebanon. Hezbollah has responded by firing rockets and launching drones at Israeli troops. Earlier yesterday, Israel also urged residents to evacuate villages north of the Litani River, signaling a possible expansion of operations.
Last night, we eliminated in the heart of Beirut the commander of Hezbollah's Radwan force. This is the same senior terrorist who led the plan to conquer the north. He thought he could continue directing attacks against our forces and our communities from his covert terrorist headquarters in Beirut. I say to our enemies in the clearest terms, no terrorist has immunity. Anyone who threatens the state of Israel, his blood is on his own head. Thank you to our brave fighters, our intelligence personnel, and our Air Force. You are the best in the world.
And the United States is sanctioning Iraq's deputy oil minister over his support for the Iranian regime. The Treasury Department says the Iraqi official has abused his position to facilitate oil sales benefiting the Iranian regime. The Treasury also sanctioned 3 senior leaders of Iran-aligned terrorist militias. In announcing the sanctions, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said the department would not allow Iran's military to exploit Iraqi oil to fund terrorism. The measures are part of the Treasury's maximum pressure campaign against Iran, targeting the regime's ability to generate, move, and repatriate funds. According to the department, the effort has disrupted billions in projected oil revenue. The Treasury says the sanctions have frozen $500,000, or rather $1 billion in regime-linked cryptocurrency and have cracked down on Iran's shadow banking networks. A rare attack on a Chinese-owned oil tanker in the region. The vessel was struck near the Strait of Hormuz, according to Chinese state-run media Thursday. The attack comes amid escalating tensions tied to the conflict involving Iran. It happened Monday near the UAE's Algiers port at the entrance to the strategic waterway. The tanker's deck reportedly caught fire during the attack, and the vessel was marked with the words "China owner and crew." A person familiar with the ship owner said it was the first known attack on a Chinese oil tanker, calling the incident psychologically very hard to accept. A federal investigative body is suing the New York Times for alleged DEI-related race and sex discrimination. And a Justice Department investigation finds UCLA's medical school discriminated based on race. Joining us now to discuss this is Mike Leon, Director of Strategy at the Free and Equal Elections Foundation and host of the Can We Please Talk podcast. And we have Tony Kinnett, national correspondent for the Daily Signal and host of the Tony Kinnett Cast radio show and podcast. So good afternoon to you both. Thank you for joining us today. So first, I just want to get reactions from you guys on President Trump's meeting today with Lula da Silva. So Tony, I'll start with you. Any thoughts at all you have on this?
I am all for any kind of dialogue and conversation that is open between the president and other members of the world. And I think that this has been something that both sides have been rather critical of in the last couple of years, depending on the president all the way back through the Bush administration. I like seeing presidents bring certain things before the American people, before the press. And again, obviously, Lula da Silva is a very controversial figure because of his prior leadership and the mess that consistently plagues South America's growing disparity between their left and right down there. But I'm happy to see the president of the United States have this dialogue. I think it's a very good thing. And also, because I forgot to mention it, very good to see both of you this afternoon.
All right, Mike, get your thoughts now.
Yeah, good to see you guys on this afternoon. Back to a virtual, unlike in person when I saw Tony last week, who happens to be very tall, by the way, folks. I don't think people know how tall Tony is in person.
How tall is he?
But he's pretty tall. He's about 6'2". Yeah, he's about 6'2". So, but leave that there for a second. Let's talk about the two shorter guys, the two that met earlier today. You know, Tony mentioned this. I do love dialogue and seeing presidents meet across the political spectrum. But we've got to remember something as somebody who knows a little bit about Brazilian politics. Bolsonaro has always been President Trump's choice. And we saw what happened with Bolsonaro with charges that were filed in Brazil. And we know what Lula has said about President Trump in the past. So to see these two guys meeting just on that surface level with all of that background and context is pretty interesting. But there's also a lot of things that we do from a trade perspective, and Brazil obviously being the biggest country in South America and our gateway to South America, what we do with respect to not only foreign policy relations, but like I mentioned, economic impacts. It's good to see these two presidents actually meeting for the first time, I think, in the Trump 2.0 administration.
Mm-hmm. All right. Okay, with that aside, Tony, let's talk about the main story here. I'm sure you already know, according to the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, every candidate who advanced through the final interview at the New York Times was not a white male. They ultimately gave the job to a non-white female with little to no experience instead of a white man with extensive experience, apparently. So the New York Times is saying that its employment practices are merit-based. What do you see here, Tony?
So coming from my prior background in education, we're focusing on critical race theory, and actually under the instruction of Gloria Ladson-Billings at the University of Wisconsin. This is a lot of my bread and butter. And this is what I've noticed in a lot of these cases in the EEOC weighing in on equal employment opportunities around the country. Through the 2010s era, you saw a lot of companies that not only pushed into diversity and equity, again, not just by making it sure that everyone has the opportunity to apply and to interview, but to say that, well, we actually need to take account that if the individual has X skin color, then they must have had X challenges that we need to count in favor of them. And then obviously if they come from what would be considered the flipped side of that, if they maybe are white or Asian or Jewish, then they need to have these things counted against them. This is the problem. When you have these situations internally, we'll find out through discovery, people brag about doing this. We see a lot of eye rolls. We see a lot of in Slack chats. We have a lot of emojis that are passed between senior leadership that talk about these policies and how they're going to carry these forward. And often even the tongue-in-cheek language from lawyers says, well, you can't technically say this, but we all know. That's often recorded and shared in these particular group chats and official company communications. So we're going to find out really quickly here if the New York Times, who again, appearances here, this would be the correlation. It does look like it, but is this causation? Did they actually discriminate here? It's likely through the discovery process if we're going to find out whether or not this was racially discriminatory or not. And just out of habit, I want to wait until I see the discovery.
Right. All right. So Mike, the lawsuit cites the New York Times call to action plan, which was published in February 2021, which set a goal of increasing the number of Black and Latino employees in leadership by 2025. So what is your response to that?
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback exactly what Tony said there on the trail end of that, which was we need to see what comes out from the discovery perspective. On the surface level, when you start reading into this case and you read about, well, wait a minute, it's a white candidate with extensive experience in something that the job description explicitly states that it needs to have, which is real estate journalism. You would think that that candidate would jump the vault, right, in terms of the other candidates that are vetted. The problem is that I don't know if this was an internal hire, a recommendation, somebody that applied through a portal and just didn't have any connections with anybody within the department. And now I'm speaking as somebody who kind of works in corporate America, in the media field, is responsible for hiring staff, right? So on its surface, right, taking away the 3+ times that Trump has sued the New York Times in the last 5 years and how those have netted out, right? That we have a recurring theme there, but we can talk about that separately. Taking all of that aside, if I just look at the case surface, right, we should have candidate A that has the experience that meets the job description requirements, no facial attributions, race, anything attributed to that, versus candidate B that doesn't have the requirements. Yes, this lawsuit on its merit should be advanced. I would be for that. I think anybody would be for that, just given what I mentioned about taking away the applicant, race, gender, et cetera, and just looking at skill set from the job description that was posted by the New York Times on this message board. I think there are two things, though, that you just mentioned there, Don, that are kind of in polar opposite of each other and how we accomplish it. How we get more Blacks and Latinos like myself, who is a Black Latino, how we get more of us into different fields of media or different areas starts from a ground up type perspective. We've got to get more internships. We've got to get more people interested in the different fields. Then we've got to get them to be seen, back to Tony's point, on the applicant pool list. But that doesn't mean they jump the line from anything else. Everything should be merit-based, based on how you have worked your way up the corporate ladder, right? In terms of your jobs and the different things that you've done skill set wise at different jobs. So when I look at this case specifically, it opens a little bit of Pandora's box if it does advance and obviously, is in the favor of the EEOC, because there are a lot of people that can go back revisionist history and say, hey, I was more, me, myself, let me use myself as an individual. There are a lot of positions where I fit the job description to a T. I mean, they were looking for a Puerto Rican guy named Mike Leon. And I would apply, and I'm obviously being facetious, but I would apply with the skill set that meets the job description requirement, because I'm my own recruiter at first. And I didn't advance. And other people that have gotten it, and I know because they've posted on LinkedIn that they've gotten the job, did not get it, and they're of a different race. So it kind of opens Pandora's box to say, can we go back revisionist history and sue every corporation that didn't give me a job that I felt I was qualified for? I think that's something that, back to Tony's point, got to see what discovery, what comes out of this, and then we got to see what the court ultimately rules on. But I think it'll open Pandora's box one way or the other.
Okay, so Tony, you can respond to what Mike said, but let me ask you, are diversity goals necessarily discriminatory? I mean, if two candidates have similar qualifications, one's white, other's non-white, and you choose the non-white candidate to have a more diverse workplace, is that discrimination?
It depends on what the framework means by bringing on more Black and Hispanic individuals, to use kind of Mike's term there. Because again, when you're talking about an individual's background, the importance is the culture, right? So saying we want a lot of diverse cultures, we want people with various backgrounds. A white guy from New England and a white guy from Southern Georgia are two different people culturally. They're not the same. They're not from the same background. They're not, well, because they have the same shade, that means they're the same. No. And in the same way, and I there's a story that I've told on my show where I had to, as the guy from the Midwest, translate between a young Black man from Harvard and the young lady at the Atlanta International Airport trying to take his order for food, because they spoke two different languages, though they were both English. Just because we say, oh, well, we want more diverse voices here culturally, absolutely. And saying, hey, we're going to try to do a little something here where on my team, I want people who have various skills and strengths. One of my producers got an amazing set of skills in economics. One of them is a sports writer for the Broncos. Those two things are not the same. And so that diversity is useful. But if I get out the Sherwin-Williams paint chart and I say, all right, let's stop here and make sure that, because, well, I mean, they're Black, they all think the same, so we just need one Black person. this is the kind of thing that has grown really out of fashion with the American people in the last couple of years, because the end result is, wow, am I being judged by the color of my skin, not the, as many on the right would qualify, the content of my character, as many on the left might also bring up justifiably the wealth and combined experiences of the challenges that I have faced due to those cultural backgrounds. Both of those things are extremely important. And again, Mike's right. This is Pandora's box here. And not just because of pre-existing cases and people that I also have been passed up for positions. That's actually one of the reasons I got into this. My boss that was chosen over me at Indianapolis Public Schools, she'd never taught a science class before, but she got the position of science and math director for the district. Little suspicious. That's going to be a Pandora's box, but is it something we need to see a federal ruling on? This is a civil case, so precedent works a little different there, I think. So we'd have to see. I need to see what the judge comes down on there.
Okay, Mike, earlier you talked about getting more Black and Latino candidates into the workforce. Should companies have numerical diversity targets? What is your view on this?
Great question, Don. Seriously. And something I dealt with because I worked in golf. I worked for the PGA Tour and with Golf Digest. Don't see a lot of African Americans or Hispanics that not only play golf, but work in the golf industry, right? How do you build that pipeline? And I remember during the George Floyd murder that happened, and you know, we had every company was doing this, where you would sit down and just talk to people and get thoughts out. And I look around the room and I'm the darkest person in the room. And my boss at the time said to me, "What do you think, Mike?" And I go, "Just look around. This is part of the problem, right? Like, we don't have, to Tony's point, a diversity mix." But I want to go back to hiring practices for a second, because it funnels into how we build up the Black and Latino base of people that are entering the workforce and how we get them advanced, but not obviously jump cutting anybody else who's already at that stage. I think the biggest thing for me is we have to understand that we don't live in an ideal world. In an ideal world, we would be doing these things where it is based off of your resume and not your skin color, right? I agree with Tony. When I'm hiring somebody, I go culture fit, skill set fit. Those are the two things you have to match. Skill set, do I have to teach you certain things, or can you already come in knowing certain things and hit the ground running? And then there's a culture fit, right? Like, can you hang out with people at your job? Are you able to mesh well within our culture? Not necessarily be a culture fit for Black culture or Hispanic culture, something like that. I think those are the two things that we have to look at, but we don't do that because that's an ideal world. We don't do that. So back to your question, Don, should companies put numerical values to it? No, but I think they should look around the room and say, who is in the room? Who are these voices that are in the room? Because especially when you work at a media company, the biggest thing you have seen is news outlets cover stories, and then you'll see the comment section. They'll be like, that is not what's happening in X community. And why is that? Because the person who wrote that is not from X community. We don't have to do that for every single example, but when it comes to the media trying to understand how people ingest news, we do have to have different voices that are covering the news, because people are different and there's different perspectives, to Tony's point. A New England white person is different than a person from London who happens to be white. Like, it's just different people, but it's about getting those different voices and perspectives. And back to the hiring practices and how we build up that base, that's more on the college front, you know, internships, getting people into the pipeline, getting them interested into the field, going back to Tony's old roots of high school and, you know, vocational training. Hey, do you want to get into this field? Do you want to get into that field? Then we can kind of, you know, start to build up those bases for those type of folks that look like me and darker that want to get into those specific fields, those specialized fields that we're currently not in. But it doesn't necessarily mean we should be jump cutting anybody. I don't think any Black or brown person would say the same. I don't think they want to jump cut. We want to be judged based on what it is that we are doing and have done, but we also want to get that opportunity. So to wrap it up, from that case, again, that is a specific example where column A was a white person that met the qualifications. Column B did not meet the qualifications. We need to find out more about discovery, so that way we can get a better answer and look to this case as a guide for future precedent.
Tony, Mike says companies shouldn't have numeric targets, but they should look around the room. What is your view on representation? You know, we always hear that we need more representation in the workplace. in media, TV, films, video games? What is your view?
So this goes to Mike's comment of it's not a perfect world, and there are no neat little boxes. And as we grow forward, there's no real situation here in which we look around the room, for example, and say, well, look at all of these faces. And if you looking over at Mike, I mean, which of these two boxes would he necessarily fit in? I mean, would he either be black or would he be Hispanic? And which of those hiring practices are now we targeting individuals for hiring from Puerto Rico? Are we establishing a specific pipeline into that? And I've used this example over in Indiana here regarding racially segregated congressional districts. We have a large Swiss immigrant community in northeastern Indiana, Bern, Indiana. It's where the Longaberger baskets come from. Not really interesting, just a little tidbit there for you. Do they need their own congressional district because the town is majority Swiss? No. Now, do the Swiss immigrants have totally everything in common with the rest of the state? Also, no. But if we start carving up little special balkanization, like little categories and boxes for everyone to fit in, that's not useful. And in the same way, and I'll say this kind of on the flip side, what it also creates is an issue of tokenization. My best friend in college happens to be one of the only black guys on our entire campus. And so he was in every single piece of promotional media for the campus because they're like, hey, look, we've got a black guy here. And instead of saying, we are a campus that wants people from all different backgrounds here, it said, hey, look, this is our token black guy. Ain't he grand? And he resented that and resented it long after we graduated because that's the other side. And so I think that the value proposition of the culture needs to change. When Mike and I talk off show, which again, thank you NTD for bringing us together that way, we talk about shared experiences that we've had. Mike and I aren't like, well, growing up as a young man with a family from Puerto Rico or growing up as a young, half Cherokee Baptist from Indiana. That's not part of it. And so I think that cultural reframing is probably what's a more important thing to focus on. That's just a long-term goal that isn't necessarily going to be solved in a lawsuit.
So Mike, to Tony's point of tokenism, do you think DEI actually encourages people to think more in race rather than not?
Yeah, I kind of like the way you framed it a little bit. I do think that there was, let me use myself as an example, from a hiring manager perspective, not from a race perspective. One of the things that I did always look to do was broaden the applicant pool, right? And it's mainly more of like why would you pick your first choice? Don't pick the first thing you see, excuse me. So let's broaden the applicant pool, right? I think the biggest thing right now is a lot of people are not their own recruiters when it comes to job hiring. But I also think that there are hiring managers out there that just say, this is one recommendation I got from this person. I like them. That's it. We're going to move past this. And I think DEI wanted to get that hiring manager to realize, hey, there are other people out there. Cast a wider net. Bring in more different people. It doesn't necessarily have to be diverse voices. It just has to be different people with different skill sets, with different shared experiences in life, and different things that they've done in their career that could help us get to where we want to get to as a company. So I think companies didn't do some of that. And I think DEI tried to maybe wedge, and I don't know if wedge is the right word, but try to get in there to say, you've got to broaden up the pool of applicants that you're searching from. I will say for me, Don, it was something I was always cognizant of. If I were to interview, I'm just going to use generic races for a second. If I was hiring when I was with the Knicks at Madison Square Garden, I'm hiring for a streaming coordinator, right? So I need somebody skill set wise, back to the parameters of this case, I need somebody that has a little bit of experience with streaming platforms, right? And being able to monitor streaming platforms like NTD and go download the NTD app. Perfect. Okay, now I get 4 applicants. They happen to be a white guy, an Asian person, a black guy, a Hispanic woman. Now, okay, I've got my diverse candidate pool. Now I've got to skill set it and culture fit. The skill set will help me define if I need to really handhold this person or if they can hit the ground running. And then culture fit is when they start to go through the other interviews within the company. Once they go through the other interviews, then we get that accumulated feedback and say, okay, this person can fit our culture. That's what I wish more companies would do. But I think to your point, Don, I think DEI made this emphasis of like, make sure those 4 candidates I mentioned are of X race, X race, X race. And that shouldn't be the case. That's not what I want. I don't want that.
Intention versus execution.
Exactly. I want my resume to reflect why I should be one of those 4 pillars, not mandated as my skin color being one of those 4 pillars.
All right, well said. So I just have one final question here, because last time they told me the conversation went on for too long. So, I mean, I had more questions, but let's just end with this one. I thought it'd be interesting to get your guys' thoughts on the new HBO Harry Potter series. I don't know if, Mike, you're aware of this, but Tony, I know you know where I'm going with this. Severus Snape cast as, the person cast... the person cast is an African-American actor. So, I mean, given the story of Severus Snape, how he was treated by different people, Harry Potter's father, initially by Harry Potter as well, do you see that as problematic? I mean, what is your view on this person specifically being black?
The entire series is unnecessary from head to toe, everything from the casting to the reboot. And yes, the way that the acting is being done, there are physical descriptions of Severus Snape throughout the book that are going to cast a lot of the flashback moments as though James Potter was being mean to him because he was black instead of because he was this greasy, stringy loner who was, kind of like Gollum. I mean, almost. So, I mean, when I look back to this, I say that it's deeply unfortunate. It's unnecessary if that were the case. Now, again, the actor playing him is a very talented actor, and it's very unfair to him to put him in this situation where he's going to get a lot of arrows for that reason. But, I mean, 1 under a million, the entire series is just unnecessary. And so make an unnecessary series, get unnecessary choices.
So, Mike, your final thoughts, your overall thinking on the industry, sometimes race swapping certain characters.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to answer the Harry Potter question because Elizabeth Leon, my wife, would know way more about that than me. I'm not a Harry Potter person, so I wouldn't know anything of that. If this was for a different role, like let's say a black Thor, for example,
talk to us about Little Mermaid or Snow White.
Well,
pick any movie.
But there's a perfect example there, though, Don. Like I think Hollywood has a challenge that the workforce that we just talked about throughout this segment has, in that we are casting fictional characters always as white people. Do we need to switch that up? Do we need more representation? I will say, this is just me now as a personal fact. Watching my daughters watch the Bad Bunny halftime show, just as a one-off, and seeing the delight of their face to see somebody that looks like dad, and my cousin's his security guard, as an example, that I'm about to cry right now. Like there's an emotion and a feeling of seeing that. Do we need to do that for every freaking movie? And to Tony's point, and so your point too, Don, the book has a white kid from XYZ and now we've made it a black character. Do we need to do that? No, we don't need to do that. Like, let's find time and a balance when we do that. And let's also not do all these reboots and prequels. How about we come up with some new ideas, Hollywood?
Yeah. All right. Sounds good. Let's leave it there for today. Great conversation as well. Thank you for coming on.
Appreciate you guys.
Thanks, guys.
You.
A federal judge rules the FBI can retain hundreds of boxes of Fulton County election materials tied to an ongoing 2020 election investigation. We'll have more news after this break. Stay tuned.
Hi, I'm Susan Lucci. You may know me from my many years on television. I never thought about heart disease until I had my own heart event. I felt this slight pressure in my chest, just slight. I thought, oh, it's nothing, it'll go away. I didn't get it. I did not get it. A few days later, while shopping at a boutique, that pressure returned, much stronger. It felt like an elephant pressing on my chest. I had a 90% blockage in my main artery and a 75% blockage in the adjacent artery. I was rushed into surgery where I received 2 stents in my arteries. Stents developed through research funded by the American Heart Association. Those stents saved my life. That's why I'm in front of you today, asking you to join me in supporting the American Heart Association by becoming a monthly donor. Call now or go to helpheart.org. For only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can help fund the next medical breakthrough. Get the next person trained in CPR, the next hospital certified in high-quality cardiovascular care. I'm so grateful to the American Heart Association. Their research helped save my life. I can enjoy life with my children, my grandchildren, and my friends. Heart disease is America's #1 killer, and your support now can help save your life or the life of someone you love. Give $19 a month with your credit card, and we'll send you this special T-shirt that you can wear to show that you are helping save lives. Please, listen to your heart. The only reason I'm here today is because I did.
Please call or go online to helpheart.org. Become a monthly donor, and for a limited time only, your first month's gift will be matched.
Thank you.
You are not hidden. There's never been a moment you were forgotten. You are not hopeless.
On streets across America, homeless young people are cold, abused, in danger. Covenant House is helping young people with nowhere else to turn. Please call or go online now with your gift of $19 a month. You'll help provide hot meals, safe shelter, medical care, and love. We'll send you this comforting blanket as a reminder of the love you're showing a young person this holiday season. Call or go online now to safeplacetosleep.org, and your first month's gift will be matched.
A federal judge is allowing the government to keep thousands of 2020 election ballots seized from Georgia's Fulton County. District Judge J.P. Boley ruling yesterday that federal agents can retain more than 600 boxes of ballots and election materials taken from a warehouse near Atlanta. The FBI seized 656 boxes as part of an investigation into alleged irregularities in the handling of ballots and election records from the 2020 presidential election. Investigators examined claims of missing ballot images, duplicate ballots, unsigned tabulator tapes, and so-called pristine absentee ballots. Those showed no signs of being folded or mailed. The probe is focused on whether any records were improperly altered, lost, or destroyed, or whether ballots were incorrectly duplicated or counted. The judge says Fulton County failed to show federal agents acted improperly in obtaining the search warrant. The Justice Department has not said whether any charges will be filed. The Justice Department is launching an investigation into Fairfax County, Virginia. Prosecutor Steve Discagno. The department probing whether he's offering preferential treatment to criminal illegal immigrants. At the center of the probe is a policy Discagno adopted. It asks prosecutors to consider immigration consequences where possible during plea bargaining, charging, and sentencing. The Justice Department saying, quote, the Civil Rights Division will not allow local prosecutors to pick and choose winners based on their immigration status. This investigation will uncover whether the prosecutor is putting the community at risk in offering sweetheart deals to illegal immigrants charged with serious crimes. The prosecutor reacting to the federal probe with a statement saying, quote, my policies are fair, legal, and reflect the values of my community. An update now on former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani's health. A spokesperson saying Giuliani is out of the ICU, but he will stay in the hospital as he continues to recover. Giuliani was first hospitalized over the weekend. His spokesperson later said the former mayor was in critical but stable condition after developing pneumonia. The illness was complicated by a restrictive airway disease since the September 11th attacks, which required mechanical ventilation. His spokesperson says Giuliani's condition has now stabilized, adding the power of prayer is working. Alleged gang members getting a rude awakening in an LA park drug takedown. Dozens were arrested including two people police believe are the main sources of fentanyl and meth in Los Angeles' gang and drug-infested MacArthur Park. NTD's Daniel Monahan has the key takeaways.
Federal agents raided a suspected stash house in South Los Angeles yesterday morning, targeting alleged gang members accused of dealing drugs in the crime-plagued MacArthur Park area. Authorities say suspects inside the home tried to flush fentanyl down the toilet as agents moved in. Nearly 24 Drug Enforcement Administration officers carried out the operation at the residence, linked to alleged narco figure Malali Moreno Lopez and her boyfriend Jackson Tarfer. Officials say it marks the largest DEA bust in California in at least a year. DEA agents executed 2 additional raids at the same time, including one at a mansion in Calabasas, where they seized nearly 40 pounds of fentanyl, about 190,000 doses, with an estimated street value of $10 million. Police say Moreno Lopez and Tarfer hand-delivered narcotics to the Alvarado corridor near MacArthur Park for stashing in storefronts and subsequent distribution to street-level drug dealers. Law enforcement also identified Yolanda Iriarta Avila of Calabasas as a suspected methamphetamine supplier linked to Moreno Lopez. Officials say Operation Free MacArthur Park is aimed at cutting off the flow of fentanyl and methamphetamine, fueling addiction in the park. City programs offer homeless addicts in the area free needles and meals, a situation critics say has contributed to turning a park once frequented by families into what they describe as a danger zone. The park and the immediate surrounding area are part of heavily contested gang territory involving the 18th Street Gang, the Crazy Riders Gang, and Mara Salvatrucha, also known as MS-13. The Justice Department announced a federal criminal complaint charging 25 defendants with possession with the intent to distribute and distribution of a controlled substance. The defendants arrested are expected to make their initial appearances today in the United States District Court in downtown Los Angeles. First Assistant United States Attorney Bill Asaley saying, "Today we begin reclaiming MacArthur Park from criminals and drug addicts to return this public space to the citizens of Los Angeles." The Justice Department sharing a video captioned, "Under the fearless leadership of President Trump, we are crushing the drug trade and saving countless American lives. These defendants and anyone who helps spread the scourge of drugs in America will face the full force of federal law." Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche writing, "To the drug dealers poisoning the streets of Los Angeles, your safe haven is gone." If convicted, Moreno Lopez, Tarfer, and Iriarta Avila would face a mandatory minimum sentence of 10 years in federal prison and a statutory maximum sentence of life imprisonment. The remaining defendants each would face a statutory maximum sentence of 20 years in federal prison. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Powerful storms swept through parts of Mississippi last night, damaging nearly 500 homes. Authorities report at least 17 injuries, but no deaths at this point. Here are the details.
55 southbound. It's crazy.
Multiple tornadoes ripped through Mississippi overnight, leaving a trail of destroyed homes and injured victims in their wake.
That sucker came right through there, bro. We can't even get through here, bro.
One massive twister toppling trees and blocking parts of a highway.
It knocked all this down. There ain't no power lines or nothing out this way.
The storms also knocked down power lines, with tens of thousands of homes and businesses across Mississippi without power as of late Wednesday, according to poweroutage.us. Collapsed trees also blocking a roadway next to a hard-hit mobile home park. There were also reports of residents trapped, but dangerous conditions slowed rescue efforts, authorities said. The extreme weather impacted large portions of the South, including thunderstorms, and at one point a flood watch in place for more than 10 million people. Parts of Alabama saw severe flooding. In Montgomery Wednesday, the State House had to be evacuated because of flooding during local storms. This as other regions struggle to recover from severe weather in their communities.
Coming back in, we still had 6 inches of water around the house.
Residents in parts of Wisconsin picking up the pieces as water levels start returning to normal after last month's flooding.
At one point, there was 3 feet of water in there from looking at flood lines.
Authorities say more storms are expected today with the possibility of tornadoes across parts of Alabama, Georgia, and Florida. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt has welcomed a baby girl. Leavitt took to X to share the news. Leavitt said her daughter Viviana was born on May 1st, posting, quote, "She is perfect and healthy, and her big brother is joyfully adjusting to life with his new baby sister." The press secretary added, quote, "We are enjoying every moment in our blissful newborn bubble." Leavitt also thanked friends and loved ones for their well wishes during her pregnancy. She's expected to return to the White House press podium following maternity leave. Officials from across the globe are tracking the deadly Hanta virus outbreak. What the CDC says about American passengers on the ship where the virus is spreading. More after this break. Stay tuned.
You see certain things get reincarnated in your children. My daughter is very much inspired by my wife's artistic pursuits. So my daughter started making necklaces. She makes what we call affirmation fashion. I tell her every day that your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. And if there's anything better than being beautiful, it's being smart. And if there's anything better than being smart, it's being kind. And reaffirming that every day is our method of making sure her chin never drops. My dad wasn't around. And I remember riding a bike and falling off and cutting myself, and me never just wanted to get back on it. People ask, how your children learn how to ride a bike, and you didn't. I didn't teach them. I just created an environment where they taught themselves, and all I had to do was be there.
During high school, I hung with the wrong crowd, and I never graduated.
I helped Santiago in many different ways, like all fathers do, because he always wanted to go to college.
I felt a little embarrassed to come back to school, but eventually, once I came here, I knew that it's for a bigger goal.
He was very dedicated, hardworking. He connected with his teachers. He connected with other students. That was one of the key reasons why he was able to keep forging ahead.
It was amazing to see him graduate. This was one thing that meant so much to him, and of course, it meant so much to us too.
With the help of my father and having my son, that was all the motivation that I needed. That support is everything.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
My name's Stacy, I'm 57, and I was adopted in 2020.
We were adopted in 2019.
And we were adopted in 2021.
We had a house, and it sounds crazy, but it wasn't a home. The one thing that Jake and Emma brought is it became a home.
When I met Dakota, he had just turned 14.
You weren't there for the first this and the first that. I missed the first words, but we got a lot of other firsts.
Watching her say, oh my God, I cannot believe I got my license. And she's like, I passed. And I'm like, girl.
See them grow. It is.
They chose to love us. They didn't have to. They chose us. Family.
You and you. Kids in the middle.
What I thought was a complete life was nowhere near complete. But it is now.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org.
Officials from across the globe are tracking the deadly Hanta virus outbreak. The affected cruise ship is now heading from Africa to Spain, also carrying American travelers. NTD's international correspondent has the latest.
So far, 8 cases have been reported, including 3 deaths.
The WHO on Thursday giving an update on the deadly Hanta virus outbreak on a luxury cruise ship. Officials are reporting 3 casualties, but are suggesting the public can remain calm.
While this is a serious incident, WHO assesses the public health risk as low.
On Wednesday, a few passengers suspected of having contracted the virus had been evacuated from Africa to Europe. The remaining 150 passengers are staying on the cruise, which is on its way to the Spanish Canary Islands. Once the ship arrives, healthy passengers will be flown home.
Under no circumstances will passengers disembark from the ship until the aircraft has arrived at the airport, and this will be done with every precaution in place to prevent any form of infection or transmission.
The CDC says it's closely monitoring the U.S. travelers on board the cruise ship, adding that the risk to the American public remains low. Now, in terms of the origins of the virus, it's widely believed that it came from here, from South America. So the Hanta virus usually spreads by inhaling contaminated rodent droppings. And 2 officials from Argentina say they believe a Dutch couple got the virus while birdwatching in southern Argentina. Then they embarked on cruise ship. Ariane Pastar, NTD News.
The Trump administration is preparing visa sanctions over China on Beijing's slow acceptance of deported nationals. The move comes amid claims that China has reduced cooperation on taking back its citizens in recent months. The official says China previously accepted around 3,000 deportees on charter and commercial flights earlier in 2025, but that number has declined. ICE says some of those deported include a man convicted of murder and another convicted of rape. Washington says the lack of cooperation violates international obligations. It warns it could respond by tightening visa rules. Officials also say inaction could affect future travel for law-abiding Chinese citizens. The warning comes just ahead of President Trump's scheduled meeting with Chinese leader Xi Jinping on May 14th and 15th. British voters heading to the polls today in local and regional elections. The elections also cover mayors and seats in Scotland and Wales. Most results will likely be in by tomorrow. Such elections are typically focused on services like road maintenance and waste collection. Polls close at 10 p.m. local time, with some results expected overnight. One Colorado officer takes on a very smelly rescue mission after a skunk gets its head stuck in a cup. We'll tell you more about this after the break.
Eyes forward. Don't drive distracted.
Have you heard what's happening at Mathis Home? Our spring style event is going on now, with hundreds of options for your new dining room. This 52-inch table is a great deal. It's just $4.99 in your choice of finishes. Mix and match chairs to complete the look that's just right for you. You can also get it with a marble top or in a larger size for extra seating. We have your style in stock now with fast, free delivery. Get your new dining room and save at your furniture superstore, Mathis Home.
The 8th NTD International Piano Competition welcomes distinguished pianists from around the world, celebrating the depth, discipline, and expressive power of the Baroque, classical, and romantic repertoire. September 1st through the 5th, 2026, New York City. Apply at piano.ntdtv.com, honoring the timeless tradition of the piano.
Introducing the Quest-Wise Soothing Herbal Eye Patches. It comes with 30 pairs and can be used to help combat tired and strained eyes. The natural herbal formula provides a cooling, minty, and refreshing effect that stimulates natural tears and awakens your tired eyes. Placing the eye patches around your eyes helps to reduce dryness and massages acupuncture points. They can be worn while reading, studying, using electronics, and provide hours of long-lasting relief.
Sweetie, are you ready to go?
In a sec.
You think Granny will like this?
Of course she will.
Let's go.
Hello. Hi. So good to see you. Come in, come in, come in.
Mom, thank you for everything.
Oh my goodness. Wow, that is so beautiful. I love the color. Oh my gosh, the leather. Thank you so much. Mom, thank you for everything.
Oh, wow. It's like matches.
It's adorable.
Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy unveiled Amtrak's Freedom 250 Acela train at Washington Union Station this morning. Take a look.
Today we're launching Amtrak's Freedom Train, and we're going to give you an all aboard. First with Cadet Professional. All aboard! I'll try it. All aboard! Woo!
The special train is decked out in red, white, and blue. Secretary Duffy was seen welcoming children aboard the train after the ceremonial unveiling. The inaugural ride departs for Philadelphia's 30th Street station. The train honors the United States' 250th birthday. Its unveiling marks off the kicking off of nationwide celebrations. Planned events include a UFC fight on the White House grounds and an F1 race through the streets of Washington, D.C. The new logo has been revealed for the soon-to-be-named President Donald J. Trump International Airport in Palm Beach, Florida. The county commission reveals the logo recommended by the Trump Organization. The gold image shows an eagle with wings spread, its talons holding 2 olive branches. The crest shield features stars and stripes on the breast with 5 stars above the bird. The president's son, Eric Trump, shared the logo on social media this week. County commissioners in March voted to rename Palm Beach International Airport after the president. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis then signed a bill to officially approve the name change. Turns out bloopers don't just happen to people. One skunk in Colorado found itself in a pretty awkward situation and needed police to help get it out.
This poor skunk got its head stuck in a cup in Parker, Colorado. One courageous cop got tasked with rescuing the animal. Careful to avoid the smelly end of the encounter, this first responder bravely used a bare hand to free the skunk from its predicament. The police department posted the video as a reminder to help protect wildlife, saying littering really does stink.
All right, take a break now. We'll have more news after this in just a moment. Don't go away.
A performance that truly matters for each and every one of us. This is what you've been waiting for. See it at least once in your lifetime. Shen Yun. Get tickets now at shenyun.com.